enter the soft of nature. The ground is always covered in snow. We enter the soft of Nanon. The ground is always covered in snow. Light is blue cast, and life walks in elongated shadows of deep cobalt blue. A Tundric frozen euphoria, with no such a thing as autumn or summer. Nanon is a white frost loam. Nearby is a blue star, and the light's azure beams from it bathe the surface of the globe Nanon. Because the star is so far and dimly lit, and the sky of Nanon is bleedless and without atmosphere, there is no such a thing as day, and the night is eternal to calm. Beings live on Nanon, beings that leave deep footprintings on the surface snow. They most aptly and oftly dress in a pitch-ink cloth dark as a paint blot against the Tundric white world. The silk and velvet falls of their sleeves drape well over their wrists and fingers and sway as they move. With eyes of green brun, crystal black or blue, the Ones they are called. Theirs is the whisper speech, the tongue so quiet it cannot easily be heard. The tongue which protects the Ones from they women. For to the Ones all noise is dangerous, and music especially. The Ones, they stuff their ears with soft rolled cotton, speak only in whispered tones, and mute themselves from sound, voice, and suppress their inner intuit which longs to ring loudly. They shut themselves off entire from the world that lives in noise, and exist as meditative beings, and meditation is their plague. There was a time once before when the Ones danced their nights to beaten brace sound, but something made them all grow silent. What was it? Well, the Ones, they are quite haunted. Under the gasps and pushes of old whispers, they are haunted ever and deeply by the scratched-writ stories of an unknowable race called they women. They women are not women at all. They are as different from the Ones as one could possibly imagine. They exist in open areas as auroras, and are entities known to be made entirely of light, appearing to be living shine, pulsing and waving as if the top float of a barely disturbed water. They were seen so little that the Ones felt them as if mythos. Though vibrantly beautiful in an alien and otherworldly presence, always after being seen, the Ones sight her would be starched in ear with a highly needle-pain sound that their ears would at listen be bleeded, and some deafly silenced. They were known skin was naturally grown, olives or deep reds, greenly warmed. Their hair streams grew in browns or darkness of black. But one day it arrived that an One was born which looked nothing like the others. Its hair sprouted in an alabaster white, and its eyes were beautifully redded in a deeply glow. They watched as its skin paled to further a star's light, and as its hair grew to length. some deathly silenced. They were known to be extremely dangerous. Every One's skin was naturally grown in olives or deep reds, greenly warmed. Their hair streams grew in browns or darkness is black. But one day, it arrived that an One was born, which looked nothing like the others. Its hair sprouted in an alabaster white, and its eyes were beautifully redded in a deeply glow. They watched as its skin paled to further a star's light, and as its hair grew to length in the snow lightest of whites. There came once an unusual night when the child was still young. It became even stranger. In the peace comity of Umbra and the eternal black night time, the Ones were awoken from their slept places to a high-pitched noise and sonic needle bow, as if a frequency so lightly high it was almost unhearable, but painful. They rushed outside with aggressive fear in their eyes, grabbing their ears in pain, afraid the light entities were near. Floating in the cold center was them, lucenting and flickering, pitching their pained sound. But beneath them was the child, white-locked and barefoot, looking upwards at them with a soft smile on its face. The Ones watched with sweat-stressed hand pressed against their ears, but the child, to their amazement, just stood there, under their women, with an attentive and curious look, appearing unsplintered by their sound. When the light entities were gone, the child was asked what it had heard, and it responded with a single word: music. They women were not making just noise at all, but were speaking a language which could only be sung and was unpronounceable spoken. It was called Rovises. The ones with white hair were called the Ashes. The Ashes were the only ones who could hear the language and became the only ones who could speak it. Although when the Ashes spoke it, it was not shrill at all or painfully pitched, but stunningly strange, xenon, and bizarrely beautiful to hear. Alike as if music, speech, and a whisper's tone all in one, spelling and silver-like. Rovises was said to be the strangest language the Ones had ever heard. But still the Ones were afraid. The light entities were whispered out still, and their names became struck scarred, their faces said to be only sickle and malignant. The Ones were so deeply thrash afraid that they had all the Ashens killed. Whenever an One child was born, with starlight for hair and pink milk eyes, they too were ripped from life and violenced. A dark practice that the Ones continued for time heavy and long winds. They stayed within the safety of their far-red cities and told stories of the mythic and violently voiced light entities in deep red, whose voices boiled the head bloods of many and songed in unspeakable speech. open our story with an one. They are alone. Stepping across the deep and open tundra, far into the wilderness. With an one city scav far behind her, she walks, holding something in her arms, covered in her dark blackly clothes. The blowing wind wisps her chiffon rose as she steps slowly, lethargically. With soft rolled cotton stuffed her ears for protection. Her feet are froze with wet, and her arms are caked in ice dust. She is freezing, close to death, but searching. She looks down at her arms and sees a mound of fabric, but beneath it, concealed for warmth, is a child. Wrapped down, it presses a nudge against her abdomen flesh. She wonders how much further her body will go. To turn back and give up, or to continue forward on the sliver that they would appear. She stands here for a moment, unsure of what to do, and resolves to go back. But just as the shudder of her joint, which moved to turn away, fleshed, she sees a light. Subtle, but noticeable. It flashes and disappears, and she looks and sees nothing. She goes again to leave, but sees another. Before her was one of them. She didn't know they were real, but knows now. The stories old of which she had been bathed in all her life by the voices of the Ones and their white-breathed, night-light speeches. They had been true. They were real. And she was seeing one for the first time. Unbothered by the strong winds, it floats there in the distance, silently, mysteriously, as if watching her. A mystical air fills her ears, and more appear. Some right next to her, short, waving, and blindsome beautiful. They grasp the ground and lead a path into the distance. She follows it. She follows them far, and they lead her to a temple in the deep wilderness, appearing to be abandoned, with white powder walls. She pushes hard on the doors to open them, and is opened into a wide circular room in a blinding sea of light. More than 100, more than 2. They are more than she had ever imagined. She feels the child move against her and curls it closer. She peers up at them and removes the baby from her clothes. The child's eyes, a pink glow wash, and its hair, an ash white. She kneels to the flat carven ground, and they begin to dance around her. And their musical bizarrity shades the room. She places the child on the ground and heads toward the door. The room is charged with watery light from floor to ceiling, so bright she can barely look at it. Floors like creatures swinging and singing, and the child in the center. A girl, not quite a child, but not quite grown either, sits on the ground on top of carvings on the floor. She reads it closely, her nose up against it. These words were written by her. It is a piece of her home, the snow-dashed cathedralite. Monolith there, the world. She has been here for years, but not alone. Raised from bud to delicate petal, fanned by the wisping light taints themselves, her tongue and theirs was Rovis's. Rovuses, the language that can only be sung and is unpronounceable spoken. They taught her to sing and to speak, to write and to listen, from the time she was too young to stand to now. She's heard their bizarre speech since birth and has spent her years copying down everything that they say onto the walls, the floors, book pages, and even onto herself. She is a scribe of light, and though her oldest name is Rosacea, she is called Solace. Immersed warmly in the heat of their mystical drink and musical glow, she has never gone outside. Her whole world is the walls around her. She has covered every single one, floor to ceiling, in carving words and poetic bazaar. That there are no flat surfaces, and none she has not touched. They warned her of the outside. She knew nothing of cold wind or a naked star's light. Her ears are tuned to the sounds of beautiful music or to quiet. She sang and wrote and stared into the auroras which danced often above her. But never wondered. A noise sounds, sweetly and dragging. They enter the room and light it in deep blue. She smiles at the sight of her mysterious family. She goes to grab her book and writing stylus to copy all that they say, picking a pointed wax bar and a scraping rest. She gathers them and sits down to listen. They say, Blanco Barriol, our eyes are on the walls, to distance bolder the angles we went, cornered in thickness recent, how the resign of red light made us wares to the shaping dance. Welcome to this the earth, said the hour to the glass. The words echo Solace's mind as through her swiveling wrist they appear on the page. She knows not what they mean, but she often doesn't. She feels a flush of cold air hit her cheek and turns quickly to see from where it comes. The doors to the temple are slowly opening. She goes to run from the room, but to her surprise, they move to the door and point her to go, inviting her to not stay. Sarlis walks through the snow for the first time. The women float above her, flickeringly in walls, high and in front of her. As if pipe organs and wrens, they paint the air and the sky around her. Suddenly less afraid, her body unclenches and she becomes curious. Curious of this place she knew not existed until this very now. She steps slowly under a long and awake black sky, the dim light of the blue star whose red sun rises once every 100,000 years, points stellated, and she is with color in her eyes already. Stepping the tundra wide, she walks far, so far that the tundric flat bottles and a towering forest wall appears before her. Vast and thickly grown, with old and ancient pointed trees, Sarlis enters it to low glow. The women stop singing, and their lights dim. They fade from light to green, to dark, to none, and then it is completely black. Heavy snow rests redolent branches around her, and all has grown silent. Sarlis walks through a pitch void, with only the sound of a low hum wind, her footsteps, and her breath breathing. Some different voices croon, and they are back. As if living shawls, they breeze around her. They swing words and speak long opened tones. Their spoke makes little sense, but then they ask her a question. They ask her to sing. She does not want to, and so she responds in whispers instead. They again ask her to open her voice. She whispers only. She has never listened to such a thing come from their mouths. Though hesitant, She decides to sing. Her voice is a beautiful liquid crystal drink, but in an unfamiliar place. She doesn't want to be heard. By whom? She doesn't know. But they ask again, and so she does. Hears her, like an outflared supernatural symphony, expanding nebulous and reverberating trees. They wind above her, and their voices teeter back and forth, calling and responding. They urge her louder and stronger, calling her voice to climb the trees and upwards their tops. Sarlis, smiling at their dispeace, goes to outcall her loudest voice. But someone grabs her from behind. We hear a glass noise. This is the sound of Sarlis waking or sleeping. Sarlis lays on the snow floor, her body limp and rested to a froze shape. Her lashes are froze to clot pieces. The women are gone. The deep winds flurry through the forest, and we hear another glass noise. Sarlis is awake. The scene is so different, and she feels as if she's entered another lifetime. She sits up and shuffles her body, but her footshade hits something in the way. She looks and sees it is an arm. To her left, laying with its arm bent under itself, unnaturally, clad fully in black and snown gently over with a winded whitewater dust, is a body. Filed and rashed, she pulls her gaze from his there and forces her legs to stand, taking one tremor step to leave the scene, holding back revenge and a tear. Into the forest pitch she recedes to try and find home. memories of the night return. The wandering into the outside, the greenly lit tree dance, and the nightmarish figure in black. Her hand reaches slowly to feel her neck, and there is a wound. A shallow scratch, which wisps her head burn at gentle touch. She saw on his neck a deeply graved draw with froze redness for where it flowed. The shard in his limp hand laid collapsed and scattered in the snow. It was clear that he was unalive. She pushed the image from her mind. She doesn't know where she is, but the path is clear. Forward. The forest carves confusing paths. Lethargic and injured, she searches and searches for a way out. Lost, she walks for days. It takes her a very, very long time to get back. Body is moved to past exhaustion by the time she sees monolith there in the distance, resting the horizon. She runs to it, froze with whipping ice inside her skin and hair, and nearly dead with exhaustion. She runs on her last ache of breath. Home is now. She reaches the doors, pushes them open, slams them behind her. And vows to never open them again. She drags herself to the center of the room and looks up one last time to see that they are not there, and collapses with exhaustion. We hear a sound of glass. Sarlis is asleep. vision is shot with purples and melt-cast colors. The room is amethyst cast, saturated to warm violets, and the floor is drifting with shaping cells. It is the temple, the same, but entirely different. A gusting wind wells over her head, booming and breathing her ears. Nearly deafened, she looks up for open doors, but is inside still. Suddenly, figures enter. Spiraling and folding their bodies. She gasps at the sight. Who are they? They float through the room, and from them the mid-suns fly, radiating in purple, some sweeting in vine red, texturing the painting, a wool of dancing beings. Her feet touch the above of an oldest wide ice lake, though she's still inside. Her steps echo drummingly through the dark water well below. The doors and hallways, carved from stone, glow a phosphorant cool and appear alive. She realizes it is they women. The wall shoals morph and melt, lockless. Loudening as past fast pillar with warm Restream, the magentas yellow, and the yellows molt into warm pinks. In waves the child pour, as if she could jump into any flat land and plant a lush green forest for ages to grow. A silver violet liquid splashes her white garment and covers the floor completely. At all of the luminant bowl reflections in mirror thread glass shun strange bars to shame the dross licking her feet from rolling far. In drusts from the inside of an ocular glass, deep magenta vials paint her mind's eye. Sing moors, and she sees them around her, different than they've ever been, with instruments vibrating and falling from their arms. The walls and floors tremor and shake with light. She wonders what this place could be. How can it be so beautiful? Oxygen haze bubbles the air and covers a cloud, washing the stone in inky broth. The ceiling folds over itself in triangular triapses, misting to mold. Drip ceilings slip down and lay drops on her face, softed metal paint, silvering her eyelids. Sarlis looks up and wonders, what is this place? Half dipped in sublime and half in terror?